What's up guys, Chris Schwartz-Edmisten here from Schwartz-Edmisten Web Design. Today we're going to be looking at how to create this really beautiful page layout with a big banner image and then the content kind of overlapping that banner image with a nice soft drop shadow on the sides. So to get started, I've added a regular page to my website. I have a banner image and an H1 heading in the index section. For the underline, we're not going to cover that in this tutorial. I have a whole tutorial about creating underlines, so you go view that one if you want to learn how to add underlines to your headings. And then in the body, I've just added some text, some lorem ipsum, and an image. So pretty basic setup for the page. The design is really going to be driven by the custom CSS that we add. And it's actually not a lot of custom CSS, so let's just go ahead and jump into the HTML and let's see what we have to target to get this to work. So just looking at our page and how it's structured, it's basically split up into two sections. We have the intro section, which as I hover over the main banner image turns blue, so that's the intro section, and then we have the main page section. And within the main page, we have this section called main content. And so this is the class that I'm going to want to target because it has padding around the text. So that's exactly the look that we're going for. We want padding around the text. We just want it narrower and overlaid over the banner image. So I'm going to go ahead and target this .main content class to get started. And you target classes with a period. Open up some curly brackets. First thing that I want to do is constrain its width. So I'm going to give it a max width of I'll give it 900 pixels. And so that keeps it from getting wider than 900 pixels. And nothing happened. I actually have to include an important tag, and then you'll see it jump narrower. And the reason you have to add an important tag is because the max width is set by the style editor. So it's already in the code, and to override it, just throw on that important tag. So the next thing that I want to do, it won't get any wider than 1000 pixels, but on smaller screen sizes that are like around 900 pixels, we lose all of that spacing on the edge. So I actually want to set a width. I'm going to give it a width of 80%. And so that on smaller screen sizes will just keep that spacing on either side, which I want. The next thing that I want to do is give it a background color and just have it match whatever your page background color is. Okay, so you shouldn't see any change because it should be the same color. I'll just show you guys that it actually is working. So now we are ready to actually have it overlay our banner image. So the way that we do that is by using the transform property, and specifically we're going to translate it on the Y axis, and we're going to translate it by -100 pixels. And I misspelled transform. There we go. Cool. So you saw it just jump up, and that is the look that we're going for, but we have a problem. So our banner overlay, that overlay color that we set in the style editor, it's overlaying all of our content too, which doesn't look very good. And we don't want to have to turn off the banner overlay because we're probably going to want to use it on other pages. So all we have to do is position this banner section below this content, and so then our overlay effect is over that banner image overlay color. Hopefully that made sense, but it's pretty simple, so we can just do that right now. So pretty much all we have to do is set the intro section to have a z index of 0, which is lower than the default z index of 1. So I'm just looking for that intro section. Cool. Okay, so we have this intro has image, and I'm just gonna copy those classes and make sure that I have my periods correctly. And all I'm going to do is give this a z index of 0. So now you can see, now that we basically moved back the intro section in Z space, our overlay is now overlaying everything, including that banner color overlay. So that's really cool. We don't have to turn off that color overlay. That little bit of CSS takes care of that. Okay, so next, it's looking a little crowded. I want to add some extra padding below our title, and that's a pretty easy fix. All I have to do there is target the intro content, and I'll just do that right now. Let's jump in the HTML. So in the intro section, this is the whole section, but within that there's this div, and you can see it's the one that has all of the padding and everything. So if we're going to add padding below the title, we have to target this div that controls the padding. So you can see there's a lot of like crazy names, but within this it also has a class of intro content, so that's the class that I'm going to target to add this padding. So open up some curly brackets, and we're going to give it a padding bottom of, let's try like 200 pixels, and we're going to need to throw an important tag on that because the section already has padding, as I mentioned before. So that helped it jump down, can breathe a little bit, has a little more space. That looks really good. The only problem is our title is going outside of our like constrained width for the content section, and I don't think that looks very good, so I'm also going to give it a max width of 900 pixels, and I have to throw an important tag on that as well. Okay, so if I inspect this, that made it really crammed. I'm not really liking how that looks. So it did what we told it to. I just don't like that there's so much padding. I want the title to take up the full width of the section, and right now it looks like it has padding on either side. I want to find it here. Okay, yeah, so this intro content class already by default has a padding of 60 pixels on the top and on the top and bottom, and 80 pixels on the left and right. So all I'm going to do is change the padding left to 0 with an important tag, and I'm going to change the padding right to 0 with an important tag. Okay, so now you can see the title's able to breathe a little bit. It looks more aligned with our content, and overall it's looking really good. The last thing that we have to do, we're pretty much done, is add that drop shadow, which really helps this content stand out, and you can kind of see the overlay a little bit more, which is a really cool look. So the way that we're going to do that is with the before pseudo element. So what we have to do is we're going to add the before element to this .main content class, and the way that we can do that, because we're using less, Squarespace by default, the CSS editor has less, which is a CSS preprocessor. It allows us to just say and then add our pseudo element of before. So that's just how you target that. We could rewrite .main content before, but it's just extra code. There's not really any point, so this isn't really that important. I'm just explaining why I'm using the ampersand. Okay. So let's get back on track. Okay, so because we're using before, as you might have seen in my other tutorials, you have to set the content property, even if you're not going to fill anything in, which we're not. The next thing we want to do is add a background of transparent. And basically what we're doing is we're going to create a transparent box that's going to have the same dimensions as this content section, except it's only going to have a height of like 200 pixels, and we're going to add a drop shadow to that transparent box. So it's going to look like it's this content that actually has the drop shadow, but it's actually a transparent, before pseudo element that has the drop shadow. And the reason we're not adding the drop shadow to this class is because there's no way to tell the drop shadow just to go down like 10% of the div, which is the look that we want. It would just create a huge drop shadow over this whole content section. So I'm just going to create like a 200 pixel height transparent box, and so that will make it look like the drop shadow is only going down part way. So it's a little bit of a hack, but I just want to explain what we're doing before we get into it. Okay, so next we have to set the width and the height. So the width is going to be 100% of this section. The height, again, as I said, I guess we'll make it 300 pixels. And the position is going to be absolute. It's going to be absolutely positioned over that content section. We're going to give it a top of 0 and a left of 0. And the next thing that we can do is add the drop shadow. Okay, so I just want to real quick make the box black so you guys can see what we've created here. So again, we just put a box over the content, and we're going to be adding a drop shadow to the left hand side, to the top, and to the right hand side. So that is what we're doing. Okay, so next to add the box shadow, the property is box shadow. And the first property is going to be how much it is shifted to the left or the right. So basically the x-axis. So we're going to shift it negative 50 pixels to the left. We're then going to shift it negative 50 pixels upwards. The next value is going to be the blur. So we're going to give it a 25 pixel blur. So now you can see exactly what we have so far. And the next value is the spread. So if we give the spread a negative value, it will keep the drop shadow from being super large and just make it look like the drop shadow is much smaller than it actually is. So you can see that now we have this drop shadow on the left, and right now it's too dark. I want to give it a transparent color. So I'm going to add RGBA. You always define the color at the end of the drop shadow. So I'm going to add a 0, 0, 0, which is black, and then I'm going to give it a transparency of 20%. So it's only going to be 20% transparent. Okay, so that was our left side drop shadow. The next thing that we can do is define the right side drop shadow and just add a comma, and we can copy this. It'll make it go a lot faster rather than retyping everything. And remember, we shifted it negative 50 pixels to the left. So if we just get rid of that negative, then on this side, it's going to shift it 50 pixels to the right. So now we have our drop shadow on the left and the right. If you want to, you can go ahead and add another one to the top by adding a comma and then pasting it again. And instead of shifting it to the left or the right, we're just going to give that first value a 0. And now we have a drop shadow above. It's hard to see because it's a dark image, but now we do have a drop shadow on the top as well. So that's kind of more optional, but it might look good if you have a lighter image and you still want that separation on the top. All right, guys, so that is pretty much the look. We have this nice overlay content section on our big banner image, which looks great. because we set the width to 80%, we still get this look on tablet, which is very cool. And then when we get down to mobile, we still have that look. If you feel like it's a little bit too squished on mobile, which is understandable, I don't necessarily know that I would want that look on mobile. We can just wrap it in a min width media query. So at media screen, and we're gonna say min width 640 pixels. And so now that I have it wrapped in this media query, it will only apply to screen sizes larger than 640 pixels, which is the mobile view. So you can see the site just shows up normally on mobile, but on tablet, we now have this really cool look, and on desktop, we have this really cool look. So definitely important to harness the power of media queries to make sure that this only applies on larger screen sizes and not on mobile, where it might not be as good of an effect or also user experience. So right now this effect is applying to all of the regular pages on the site. I set up another page is just a regular page, and you can see that it's also, the styling is also applying to this page. So what if I only wanted the styling to apply to this one page? Well, it's a pretty easy fix. All we have to do is search for the page name in the page source code. So if I go back to home and I go to pages, okay, so mine is called pretty page. So all I have to do is right click and click view page source, and then Control F, and in quotes type in pretty, the name of your page. In my case it's pretty page. So here you can see there should only be one result. Here's the title, pretty page, and now go find your collection ID. So here's my collection ID. So the only thing I want to copy from the collection ID is the random string that's generated, all those numbers and letters. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to my custom CSS, and I'm going to, inside of the media query, I'm going to put a hashtag because we're targeting an ID, and I'm going to write collection dash, paste in that random string, and then open a curly bracket and go to the bottom below the last, or right above the last curly bracket, and add in another curly bracket. So now this content is only applying to this one page. If I go back to pretty page 2, you can see that there's no styling attached to it. It's just a regular page. So that is how you apply it to only one page on your site. Otherwise, don't even worry about doing that extra step, and it'll apply to all of the pages on your site. That's it from me, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around. I know this was a really long tutorial, so if you're still with me, kudos and thank you. I'm glad that you guys are really enjoying my content. Please subscribe if you are enjoying it. My channel is growing slowly but surely. So, please subscribe and to be notified of new tutorials when they come out. So again, thank you guys so much. That's it for me. I'll see you in the next one.